As hard as they're going after Ben Roberts-Smith, I just wish they would put that into fixing the country and going after real terrorists. They don't. How much of the resources were taken up going after this guy while these Bondi shooters were out there? Or while there are still terrorists in Australia today planning stuff? I'm just looking at $300 million that's been spent on this in legal fees. The only winners are the lawyers here. And I'm looking at a situation where, like, war is messy. It is messy. But in this case, they're going after him on very little evidence, if at all. And as Sam Bamford covered today, I mean, the testimonies from the other SAS guys, 21 SAS, it turns out those numbers aren't actually true. Yeah. And the manipulation of testimonies is astonishing if you look at Sam's video today. When I look at that situation, I think a lot of average people are just looking at that and being like, really? Like, is this really the top priority for the government? And I think that's a lot of fair-minded Aussies look at that, and there's a lot of questions to ask, I mean, from citizens about this. And so should we prosecute war criminals? Absolutely. In Ben Roberts-Smith's situation, this guy what's even better documented is his valor. It's very clear that this is not some coward, that's for sure. He's done, 5 or 6 trips overseas, and he's served multiple times clearing out whole villages from terrorists himself. And I think we've got to back this guy. That's my view of it.
One of the things, when I put a video up about it, one of the things I noticed that, maybe 1 or 2 people out of 300 odd comments, I kind of said, hey, we've got politicians who sit in an office, in a desk with aircon, who have a team of advisors and bureaucrats around them, and they take years to make a decision and they get it wrong. And then we're putting this judgment on someone who is in a war zone. And the first thing people who were in favour of it said, yeah, but the decisions he made, they weren't split seconds decisions. And I just wanted to make it clear, like, my rebuttal to that is the whole time these people are in that zone, it is under trauma. Like, you're under duress the whole time. If you've heard the story of Sam and Steve, his mate, and probably Ben spoke about when that Afghani was in the camp, right? You think how you respond to, you're now not under duress, right? You're in your mess or where you stay, but it's a war zone, but this is your own camp. The minute something like that happens, you are never not under duress again. So every situation in that zone, I mean, these guys, when they come back from overseas, they spend the rest of their life with PTSD and under duress. And so I think it's really easy for people at home to go, oh no, those decisions he was making and doing those alleged crimes, they weren't under duress. And I just think that's such a weak argument. For starters, it's a good sign to see so many people, it feels like 95%, it's just not my little bubble, but I feel like the numbers are overwhelming in support. And I love seeing One Nation come out. I was waiting to see Hasey's statement or what he would say, and that was pretty political, like just put something to say nothing,
He just put out a statement today, if I can say, and he did say he probably will be forced to testify again against Ben Roberts-Smith. But the circumstances around that, I mean, I don't want to impugn Hasty too much, but he was accused by the defence of Ben Roberts-Smith as basically having this protection from Network 7. There's huge question marks around Hasty and all of this. So
that's just the scenario is just like the original question, like, what's the point? I'm not saying that if someone commits war crimes, we shouldn't address it and focus on it. But it's like you spend 15 years or 8 or 15 years, whatever it's been, $300 million. And like you said, there's no way they have spent that looking into what happened in Bondi. I'm just trying to work out what the point is. Why hate Australians? Why hate our heroes? Sam made a point of going after the alpha male, and he's looking at this number one icon, and what another way to chop down that tree. But I just can't see the point in doing this.
This is like quite a philosophical topic, to be honest, because I'll go through a few topics. One thing that was interesting to observe was the moral grandstanding, particularly with the left or people who associate themselves as left thinking. They sit there moral grandstanding, I would never do that. I would never do that. And I said to my friend, and he's quite left-leaning, I said, okay, you say you'd never do that. How about if I send 100 versions of you to war? If I could clone 100 versions of you and send you to a war zone, how many versions of you would it take until you commit a war crime? And that got him thinking, oh yeah, you're right. Maybe, I don't know, 1,000? And then but initially he said, no, it would take an infinite amount of me. I'm like, there's no way, dude. Because when you go into a war zone, there's all these environmental factors. I was saying a bomb goes off next to you when you're sleeping. Even the shock alone, it changes your biochemical nature. Just even the flash can change the way you think, the way you behave. So all these people who are moral grandstanding, sitting behind their safe little rooms, saying that I would never do such a thing. I think it's important to observe. Those are the people you got to be the most concerned about. And Jordan Peterson talks about this quite a bit. It's those who say that they're not capable of evil are the ones who are the most capable of evil, because it means that they haven't fully got in touch with their shadow self. Because the reality is, if you look at humanity and look at all the 10,000 years of history we have, humans are disgusting, sinful creatures that do terrible, terrible things. We've done some of the worst stuff ever. And if you're going to sit there and act like that's not the case, you're living in an absolute delusion. You're living in a fantasy land, and that's more dangerous than someone who's fully okay with that, has fully accepted that being a man is dangerous. Jordan Peterson says, you need to be a dangerous man who has self-control. So that's one thing. The second thing, why are they doing this now? Well, it goes back to the demasculation, like, this whole idea of toxic masculinity. But also it goes down to AI, robotics, and the future of warfare. I think in the future, most of warfare will be drones. It will be swarm drones. It will be missiles. It will be... You don't need men anymore. You don't need strong men. You don't need brave alpha men. You don't need a society full of strong men who don't compromise to the government. What the government really want for the future is a population of men who are weak, who are cucks, who don't know how to stand up for themselves, who don't know how to think properly, who take everything at face value, who will go, yes, sir, no matter what. That is also part of the plan. I think long-term, this is to do with drones, to do with robotics, to do with AI. China apparently has just reached quantum computing and quantum AI. If that's true, that is a whole new chapter of reality we're about to step into.
Can I just say, George, you mentioned this has taken 15 years with this guy. Now, I'm reminded of that quote, justice delayed is justice denied. The idea that whilst we do need to be prudent in a legal trial, 15 years, there's supposedly an abundance of evidence. Supposedly the investigators can't get to Afghanistan, but there's an abundance of evidence somehow. It just doesn't add up.
I even think just what you're saying, George, about like the deeper conversation, isn't it pretty weird that you can pay someone a lot of money and tell them it's okay to kill and then expect them to not change? And this is not defense or a war crime. I'm just thinking this out loud. And then all of a sudden, but you draw a line and you go, but if you kill in this environment, that's a no-no. That's a war crime. Even that is so messed up for humans to deal with.
Well, World War II is a perfect example. People look at Winston Churchill as this absolute hero. But Winston Churchill, if you take an objective look, like if you removed your humanity out of it for a second, just look down like an alien, Winston Churchill did terrible things. His leadership led to lots of death and destruction and unnecessary pain and suffering for humanity. But he won the war. So he is the hero. And if you look at history, war heroes or warriors have never been this pure divine goodness have come through. Some of the greatest heroes of our time have done some of the most disgusting acts. That's just the reality of humanity.
But can we also mention the fact that the media were tipped off about this the day before? Ben Roberts-Smith was on a domestic flight in a domestic airport from an Australian city to another Australian city. Why did they have to arrest him by the federal police? They have just jurisdiction on the whole continent. So, first off, he wasn't fleeing the country. He told them, you can come get me whenever, I'll turn myself in, whatever. But, to arrest him on a plane with his daughters there, and on top of that, it's just come to light that the Sydney Morning Herald wrote up the article the day before. They were tipped off about this. They wrote the article the day before he was arrested. And there was media at the airport when he was arrested. So this is just all of this compromises the integrity of our judicial system, our federal police, our corporate media. It just, a lot of Aussies are looking at this. And in this current age of social media and content creators and average people being able to switch up the phone and call crap out, people aren't buying it. And so let's say he's a genuine war criminal. How does this help prosecute a genuine war criminal when you carry on like this in the media? You're meant to be the guardians of democracy, not working hand in glove with the government and penning, Sydney Morning Herald penning an article the night before and then making sure you got cameras at the place when he's arrested. It's just, it craps on the whole, judicial system.
And
it's
just
terrible.
to go on to what Joel's saying, the difference between a war criminal and a war hero is who wins and who loses. And in this
100%.
country, the difference between a war criminal and a war hero is who you are to the government. Are you a threat to the government? War criminal. Are you for the government? War hero. That's how it works in this country.
As hard as they're going after Ben Roberts-Smith, I just wish they would put that into fixing the country and going after real terrorists. They don't.